Impeachment is in the air. People are talking. And Kenyans are getting excited, very excited, about the prospect of impeaching a sitting president of the Republic of Kenya. And of course this has been triggered by the recent landmark ruling of the High Court declaring Azimio to be the real majority coalition in Parliament. And so on my show today, we shall focus on that 1 million Kenya shilling question. Is it possible to impeach William Samoei Ruto and remove him from the presidency? Or is this ndoto ya mchana, a pipe dream that has no chance of seeing the light of day? Now, to ensure that our feet remain firmly on the ground, that we're not flying up there in the clouds, building castles in the air, let us start with the reality on the ground at the moment. The reality of the relationship between the executive and Parliament right down history. The truth is, from the days of the presidency of Jomo Kenyatta, the presidency has always kept a very close, wary eye on Parliament. Wouldn't you do the same if you're president and had any intentions of remaining president? Of course you would. You'd have to keep a very close eye on Parliament. Now, I don't want you jumping the gun because of what I've said so far and assuming that it is impossible to impeach President Ruto, because that is not the true position. There is a way that it can be done. So please be patient and allow for the thorough analysis you've gotten used to on this channel. Now, just to give you a clear picture of how closely the executive was monitoring Parliament in the days of Jomo Kenyatta, there is somebody who went into detention for speaking only 3 words in Parliament. A legislator in those days called Jean-Marie Seroney, who happened to be sitting at the speaker's seat when this debate was ongoing. And Martin Shikuku said, Kanu is dead. And members stood up very quickly, members allied to Jomo Kenyatta, and demanded from the chair that Martin Shikuku either substantiates that statement or withdraws it altogether. And Jean-Marie Seroney said, these are the 3 words that took him to detention. That is obvious. That is obvious. Those 3 words were enough. Pop! Seroney in detention without trial. He had said, that is obvious. And therefore, something which is obvious does not need to be substantiated. And of course, Martin Shikuku went with him into detention. And that clearly tells us that the executive was monitoring Parliament so closely that somebody would not get away even with 3 words. Yeah, they knew everything that was being said in Parliament. But let us fast forward to more recent history for purposes today. After the handshake between President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Odinga on the stairs of Harambee House in March 2018, we now know that one of the first problems Raila had to help his brother Uhuru with was Parliament. You see, Uhuru had already lost control of Parliament. Parliament was being controlled by the then Deputy President, William Samoei Ruto. And indeed, this is one of the factors that forced the handshake. Yeah, if you didn't know, today you know. And some of us will remember that after the handshake, President Uhuru Kenyatta never had a Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting. The members called for it several times, begged the president, but it never happened. Yeah, I'm sure you know why by now. It was because Ruto controlled the members of Parliament. And so the way Uhuru handled Parliament after that was through Raila and his ODM brigade. And also, this is very important for our purposes today, Uhuru also fully used state machinery. Now, I believe we all know that state machinery is very powerful. And one of the methods a president can use to get bills passed through Parliament is state machinery, because it is easy for the state to convince a member of Parliament to change their mind. This can be done either through the waiving of files. We have this information on you. We can easily prosecute you. We can expose you for this. They can use the information they have to get a member to change their vote. You'll agree with me that is very relevant to this impeachment manenos we are discussing today. And so, bila kizungu mingi, let me answer that question very directly. And let me frame the question as follows. Is it now very easy to impeach President William Samoei Ruto? The answer to that question is no. Again, I beg you not to jump the gun. Okay? I have not said it is impossible. All I have said, it is not easy. But of course, it is very possible. And indeed, in our history, there are few instances where the state has failed to control Parliament, has failed to have its way, and Parliament has pushed through and done something State House did not want Parliament to do. Let me give you a quick example. After the assassination of J.M. Kariuki, a chain of events unfolded in Parliament that caused Parliament to do something State House did not want them to do. Okay? Very quickly, the body of J.M. Kariuki was found by his family after tip-off from a policeman. And his family rushed to Parliament and sat in the public gallery when the question came up on the floor about the whereabouts of J.M. Kariuki, who at that time was still missing. And the person in charge of government business at that time was, of course, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, the vice president. And he stood up to read the prepared government response to that question. But he did not go far. Suddenly there were screams of women from the public gallery, including one of JM's wives. They were screaming, "Stop lying to Kenyans. JM Kariuki is dead. We have just seen his body at the mortuary. His body is at the mortuary." There was pin drop silence in the house. And what followed is that many members got into their cars and they all rushed to the city mortuary. And when they arrived, there was more drama, because they found some officers of the then special branch, intelligence officers, desperately trying to squeeze the body of J.M. Kariuki through a window at the back. What? But let us not get carried away by the drama of the time. Let us stay on point. So there are a lot of emotions flying around. And shortly after that, a debate started on the floor of the House, which ended up in the formation of a Parliamentary Select Committee to investigate the murder of J.M. Kariuki. State House did not want this. They tried everything to stop it. They used state machinery. They waived files. They were not able to stop the formation of that Select Committee, which members overwhelmingly voted for. And with the benefit of hindsight, that Select Committee came up with the truth. They came up with so much information, so much detail, that would otherwise have not come out. And in my opinion, they actually got to the truth. Now let us back up a little. How come state machinery didn't work this time around? The chain of events, the emotions which were very high in Kenya at that time, all of those conspired to change the mood in the House, from members telling themselves, the government can do me damage, I have to be careful. They changed from that to, I don't care, this is too terrible, we must do this for a colleague, for a departed colleague, who most of us loved. He was a good man. For the sake of his memory, we must do this. You know, we Africans worship the dead. I'm sure you know what I mean. Anyway, the question now is, are the chain of events and the emotions flying in Kenya right now enough to stop state machinery dead on its tracks and allow an impeachment motion on the floor of the House to at least start? The answer to that question is an emphatic yes. In case you didn't know, there are a lot of emotions in the air in Kenya right now. People are fed up with the Ruto administration. And even more significant, those who have been close to Ruto are now disillusioned. And they're tired of this administration. And to make matters worse, politicians, especially ambitious politicians, can now smell blood. What that means, they're seeing a chance of removing this regime. That is very dangerous for Bwana Ruto. And the other factors that could easily come into play. The Kalonzo Musyoka factor. Through his Wiper legislators, he has 25 MPs on the floor of the House. That may not seem very many, but 25 is more than enough to start something in the House, convince other members, sway things in their direction, etc., etc., especially while taking full advantage of the mood in the country, the mood in the House right now. There is also the Raila Odinga factor. Now currently, Raila is very busy campaigning for a position at the AU. Okay? But remember, Raila does not need to talk in public. He doesn't. And we have seen this many times before in our history. And remember, every politician knows that anybody who emerges right now as a hero fighting the Ruto administration will not need to campaign in the next election. They will not need to campaign. If you emerge as a hero against Ruto, you are a star. You will get elected at 4 a.m. in the next election. Oh yes. Bottom line, there are too many factors conspiring against Ruto right now. Way too many for comfort of Ruto. And so, let the games begin. I'm sure many of us are very excited. What's going to happen next? Well, at least now, I hope we all have a very clear idea of the dynamics, na vitu kwa ground, and what is very likely to happen. And remember, they do not need to be successful with this impeachment motion. No, they don't. All that needs to happen is for this discussion to start on the floor of the House. And even better, for that impeachment motion, on whether to impeach Ruto or not, for that to come on the floor of the House for voting. That is enough to finish Ruto. Why exactly? Because all that will go into the Hansard record of the House, which is closely monitored by foreign intelligence services, which is closely monitored by foreign news agencies, which is closely monitored by local press. And therefore a lot of that will go viral on social media. And the very obvious predictable result is that the cries of Ruto must go are going to pick up momentum tremendously. And that is not good for the survival of the Ruto presidency. I believe that is obvious. Now, very quickly before I go, a reminder of my very latest special report. It is highly sensitive because it goes very deep into the corridors of power, behind the scenes where information rarely trickles out. And what I found for this special report will shock you to your bones. Hey, my friends, I am not exaggerating. Naturally, I cannot give you so much detail here. But the long and short of it is that it reveals how the Ruto presidency is crumbling on the inside. There are things which are happening on the inside which are not good for this presidency. There is isolation. People fear to approach Ruto these days, and for a very good reason that will shock you to your bones. Now you can see details on your screens right now. For only Kenya shillings 3,999 or $31, you can have this highly sensitive special report pop in your inbox. Now, because of the sensitivity of this information, naturally, this will not go out to too many people, and therefore the slots are limited. So please move with speed in case you're interested, and get yourself this information that, in my opinion, will enable you to predict very accurately how long the Ruto presidency will last or not. And you'll also be able to understand so many other things because of this information, including the reason why the abductions cannot stop. You know, the method of abductions has changed in recent times. These days it's done chini ya maji. This shell-shocking information will tell you why the abductions cannot stop. And I'm sure you will totally understand. You will totally get it. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.